As Subi and I began our research for the celebration of Zeta's 125th anniversary, we had no idea the new friendships that we would make and the treasures that we would uncover. It began with a simple question: were there any places in Farmville that still stood from the times of our 9 founders in 1898? Now, we knew that Longwood University's campus had expanded greatly over the decades, but what about the town itself? Could there be a building or two that our founders had passed by or shopped at on their walks through town all those years ago?
Our search for one specific location where our founders frequented, called Lithia Springs, led us to the Facebook pages of the Farmville Prince Edward Historical Society. There we discovered a wealth of knowledge held by one man in particular, Mr. Jimmy Hurt, who we finally called Mr. Jimmy. An expert on the area's history, Mr. Jimmy had researched many topics we hope to learn more about, including the elusive place called Lithia Springs that apparently intrigued our founders and for some reason intrigued us. Patty and I just knew we had to meet this historian and gain his insights in person.
With National Council's blessing, we scheduled a research trip to visit Farmville, but there was one more destination that called to us: the archives at Longwood University's Greenwood Library. Our fraternity has deep ties to the university, and Jamie Crow, the university archivist, has always been so helpful in assisting with our research. In fact, she was instrumental in finding the perfect location for the ZTA 125th anniversary plaque. It was placed at Granger Hall, the historic site which celebrates Longwood's first practice school for teachers.
Our meeting in Farmville with Mr. Hurt and Jamie was more than expected. Mr. Hurt launched into a slideshow he had created just for us that gave us historical details of many Farmville buildings and homes that still stood from the late 1890s. One of the most exciting revelations was the fact that the location of the H.H. Hunt Studio, the place where the mystifying picture was taken, still stands in downtown Farmville. But one of the most fun revelations was the hidden location of Lithia Springs, which Mr. Hurt personally took us to see. Patty and I could not resist after Mr. Hurt showed us where the springs were located, and the next day we tromped through briars and brush to toast strawberries at what remained of the springs. But the biggest surprise came when we explored the boxes that Jamie had pulled from the holdings of the Farmville Prince Edward Historical Society for us to study. There were boxes of the Bug family scrapbooks, which we had asked to see. The Bugs are a familiar family to Farmville, and Claire Bug was one of Zeta's early members and served as our Grand Secretary for 9 years. And then there was this one small box set aside, which drew us over with an almost magnetic pull. The description of the holdings in that box read, Zeta Tau Alpha membership pin, gold shield, black enameled background, gold crown in the center surrounded by the letters Z, T, and A, and Greek word Themis across the bottom. Pin is undated and bears no inscription, but likely belonged to Alice Maud Jones, a founding member of Zeta Tau Alpha. Patty and I looked at each other and our mouths dropped open.
We were not looking at just any old badge. We were looking at Maud's founder's badge, the badge from 1898 when she became our first president. Sisters, I wish you could have seen the joy and disbelief on our faces in that moment. We were so excited to give the background and tell Mr. Jimmy and Jamie what an important piece of Zeta history that they had in their collection. We tried to play it cool, but we were both so excited that we started tearing up. After all, even Shirley Kriesenstrout was never able to locate this badge when she was gathering our historical collection back in the 1920s from the founders themselves. We had been through the Greenwood Library holdings extensively in 2013, but this was a fairly recent item that was cataloged from 2022, and it's something that we really thought was lost in the mists of history.
We called Dinah to let her know what we had found and that Longwood would have something very special to display in their historical exhibit for us for our 125th anniversary. It was sad when we had to close up the little box and leave it in the Longwood Library, but we were so thankful for the Farmville Prince Edward Historical Society and for Longwood Greenwood Archives for taking such good care of this piece of precious history.
But the story does not end there. Subi and Patty shared with Mr. Jimmy and Jamie pictures of Maud, our historical and educational center, and explained the significance that Maud had on our fraternity and the significance of that badge. As a result of conversations and thoughtful discussions, I am happy to report that the Farmville Prince Edward Historical Society felt that the badge should come home to Zeta Tau Alpha and take its place among her sisters once more. It will be placed in the Historical and Educational Center at International Office with Maud's possessions for all Zeta sisters to see. We are filled with emotion at what this badge represents, to feel the connection with Maud, all of which is even more meaningful as we celebrate 125 years of sisterhood.